Hello, and welcome to Too Much. I'm your host, Emma Clipstein. I don't know how you got here. I don't even know how I got here. I don't know if you came over from perhaps another podcast that I was on, or if you've known me since I was in diapers, or if you're my mom. But I'm very glad you're here. So if you don't know anything about me, my name is Emma. I am a 30, almost 31-year-old New Yorker. And I never thought I would be a podcaster. My life has taken so many twists and turns that I could have never anticipated and really could have never dreamt of. But I guess how I got onto this couch is that 3 years ago, I started my own marketing agency. And I thought that was my peak. I am a CEO. I'm going to grow my business, rule the world. I thought that was it. And I was really happy with that because I had always wanted to run my own business. I had always wanted to be my own boss. I've kind of always been a lone wolf, as you will come to learn. About 1 year into running my own business, I reconnected with an old acquaintance, if you will, and she brought me on to a client. For about a year, her and I partnered on that project, and eventually the client wanted to part ways. So her and I got together for a little brunch to have a laugh about it. And during that brunch, we had about 5 margaritas each and started cackling about all of these crazy life experiences that we had both had and telling stories. And in that moment, my next baby was born, Unhinged. The last year and a half has been an absolute whirlwind. Within a few months, we had hundreds of thousands of people double tapping, tuning in, and for all intents and purposes, we became somewhat of a household name. That might be pushing it a little far, but if you had a TikTok, you had probably seen us. So I thought, again, this is going to be the rest of my life. This is what I'm going to do. But like so many plans, that changed. And I'll get into the details at a later date. But all you need to know right now is that I decided that there was a different story that needed to be told. My story. The story of how I became the woman sitting here on this couch. How I became unapologetically myself. And how I stopped apologizing for being too much. I've been ideating on this podcast for probably the last 7 months, and it has evolved so many times. At first, my thought was, I've had a lot of relationships. I've broken up with a lot of people. I've been broken up with. I'm going to talk about that. And then I thought, that's not really too far of a departure from my previous venture, Unhinged. So then it pivoted again, and I thought, okay, well, something that I talk about a lot is how I'm a hyper-independent person. I'm a perfectionist. And it seems that a lot of people are relating to that and resonating with that. So another idea was born, and I said, okay, maybe I will do my life through that lens, through the perfectionist lens, and how it affects so many parts of my life, like my relationship, my friendships, my career, picking a fucking rug for my apartment, all the things. And then I realized that's probably a little too niche, but it's got a nice angle to it. There could be another venture there. So I started talking with people in the industry to kind of get their idea on what I could do. And one person called something out, a characteristic about myself that took me a very long time to get to. And that is that I am unapologetically myself, that I am real and raw. And I'm not trying to act like I'm the only fucking person in the world that's real. I'm not the JoJo Siwa who's like, I am the next Lady Gaga, whatever. I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but it is my superpower. It is something that I love about myself and that I'm very proud of developing. I give it to you straight. What you see is what you get. And that only came from the moment I stopped caring about being too much for someone else to handle. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with that angle. And I swear to God, as I am writing this list of a million names, obviously tapping into ChatGPT and putting in all the characteristics of myself and all my stories and everything about me to see what it would come up with. I'm writing a list, and I really did like some of the names, but it was like say yes to the dress. Nothing was really clicking with me yet. And I just so happened to open up TikTok Don't know when you're going to be watching this episode, maybe RIP. But I opened up TikTok and there was this video right there of a girl saying, sometimes I think about apologizing for being too much. And then I remember what the Mad Hatter said to Alice. He said, you've lost your muchness. You used to be much muchier. And in that moment, I was like, holy fucking shit. That's me. That's it. That's the name. Too much. And I'm sure that resonates with a lot of people, and I hope it does because that's why you're here. But like I said, that was kind of an overarching theme in my life. But there also is this famous story of when I started dating my boyfriend. And a little context, if you're new here, I know my boyfriend because I met his sister 5 years ago on a bachelorette party. I'm going to dive into that story on the next episode, but that's pretty much all you need to know right now is that I was 26 and I was a menace. So we were about 3 or 4 dates in, and after 3 or 4 martinis, he revealed to me, you know, my sister said that you might be a little too much for me. And I kind of scoffed and I was like, huh, okay, I might be too much for you, but I'm going to be just right for someone else, and that's just fine. So I essentially told him to go fucking kick rocks if I was too much for him. I just simply did not care because I've gotten to a point in my life where I love myself and I am proud of myself and I'm happy to be too much. So all that said, that's how I knew this was the perfect name for the podcast. I also didn't think that I was going to be drinking on this podcast like I used to on the last one, but I needed something to calm my nerves. So here we are. Cheers. Oh, Jesus. Cheers. You can come in. My mom just got here. Yes, it's recording right now. This is my mom, by the way. I have never spoken to an empty room before. I've always had a co-host. And I needed a little bit of a sounding board. And I'm going to cry, so I can't talk about it anymore. But she is here. She's my biggest supporter. And hey, Mom. You can say hi. Hi. So anyways, that's how I got the name of the podcast. And I know what you might be thinking. So what? Who the fuck is this girl? So I'll tell you. I grew up in Somers, New York, about an hour and a half north of the city. I actually just learned the other day that it is the most northern town in Westchester. Until you get to, I'm looking at my mom to fact check me. Yeah? Yeah. Most northern town in Westchester. And I didn't play any sports, really. I tried, but I quit almost everything. And I was a bit of a theater kid, but like the cool kind. So I'd always been in love with the arts and with fashion. I was a bit of a lone wolf my whole life. I still am. I bopped around from friend group to friend group, relationship to relationship, which was a common theme throughout my life, as you will soon learn. And I could not wait to get out of my hometown. When I was younger, I wanted to go to school for performing arts, but then I thought, there's probably no money in that unless you're amazing, so I'm gonna go to school for fashion. Quickly found out that there's not as much money in that as well. I had a sister who went into finance, and I was kicking myself for quite a while when I saw how much she was bringing home compared to myself. But humble beginnings. So I decided I was going to FIT. I was gonna live out my Gossip Girl dreams and live in the big bad city. Day after graduation, high school graduation, I started my very first internship. I commuted down into the city, an hour and a half on the train. I borrowed my mom's Banana Republic trousers, put on a red blazer that was far too big for my body, a cream tank and ballet flats, but not the cute ones that are trending now. They were more like senior citizen home slippers or something. Very bad. I went and steamed clothing in a closet for free for 2 months. Did not have my summer vacation. I was like, I'm moving to New York City. This is cutthroat. My time is now. And that's pretty much what I did all throughout college, in between dancing on top of tables with promoters, something I did not anticipate really when I was moving into the city. My mom's putting her hand on her head because she did not know what a promoter was. And really neither did I. My 2 sisters went to, actual colleges, normal colleges with sports teams and stadiums and mascots. And I decided to go to FIT. So the very first night I went out, to give you some context of the next 4 years of my life, we got basically scalped by a promoter on campus. This guy came up to us and he was like, hey, do you guys like to party? We didn't really know what that meant. It can mean many different things depending on who you ask, but we were like, yeah, of course. And he told us that we were going to go to PhD that night. And PhD, if you live in New York City, actually used to be very cool. Now, not so much. It's pretty bridge and tunnel. So we all put on our highest heels and our shortest skirts, threw caution to the wind of any jackets or anything. And we went out with this strange man that we did not know. We got to PhD and everything was for free. We had bottles on bottles on bottles, and we had the best night of our life. There was like a Olympian at the table. There was like a musician at the table. All these people. It was amazing. And we got out unscathed. We went home that night and no big deal. Went back to the dorms on 27th Street. And I called up my mom the next day because I was so pumped. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, you won't believe what happened. We went out with these guys. Everything was amazing. Immediate response, you're a prostitute. Nothing in life is for free. What are you talking about? And I was like, what are you talking about? We didn't do anything. So that took a little bit of conditioning on her part and my part. But that's what college was like for me. It made me grow up really, really fast. We didn't have frat boys. We didn't have sororities, Greek row, anything like that. So when we went out, it was 35-year-olds who just got off of work from Goldman and Sachs. I just said Goldman and Sachs, so that just goes to show my knowledge of finance. Goldman Sachs. And that's pretty much how I started to become the person that I am. I realized, like, we're out with the big dogs. I got to be a big dog. So anyways, did that for 4 years. Started my first job senior year, my first real job. I had a couple internships and things like that in between. But my first job, I was the executive assistant to a president of a company, which I will not disclose. But she was a monster. She pretty much thought that she was the Devil Wears Prada. And as much as I don't want to give her credit, she taught me everything that I know. I became a force. And not because of her. I don't want to attribute it to her. But it was because I learned to adapt and I learned how to survive and thrive and I figured it out. So after about 6 months of that, I had it. I had a lot of miles on me. I was 22 years old and I felt like I was jaded already in New York City, which is far too young to become jaded because I feel like I'm jaded now, again, at 31. And that's just, it's far too young. Anyways, I gotta leave something from the other episodes. But essentially, met a guy. He invited me out to LA for the weekend, flew me out, and I went there. And I fell in love with LA. So decided to move to LA right after graduation. I spent the next 7 years there. I was in and out of relationships, friendships, jobs, all these experiences, which really shaped who I am today. But when I first got there, I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anyone. I just had to figure it out. And I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time figuring out who I am. And people even came to visit me after 6 months, a year, whatever it may be. And they were like, wow, you're so much different than you used to be. Because I think I was very high strung and I didn't quite understand who I was when I was younger, as you should. 20s are for figuring out who you are. But it took me moving away from home and facing a lot of adversity to get to where I was when I left LA. So from there, this is all cliff notes of the story, but started my own company after 6 years or so because I was fired and got broken up with about like 6 months later, packed up my bags and moved back to New York. And ever since then, my entire life has fallen into place and gotten me to this very couch. So that's what this podcast is about. The 1,000 lives that I have lived and every single lesson that I have taken from them. I'm here to share experiences with you about all the fuck ups that I've had and everything that I learned from them, and to offer the biggest lesson that I learned, which is it's okay to be yourself and it's better to be yourself. You shouldn't be trying to be anyone else. Not everyone is going to like you, and that is okay. There are going to be people who will celebrate your individuality, and those are the only people you need in your life. Ever since I can remember, my mom has always called me a ham because I was always so extra. I always did extra. I always wanted to be on stage. I always wanted to be in front of people, and I always wanted to be the center of attention. I'm not kidding. When I was 8 years old, 2002, to date myself, Chicago came out, the movie. And it was Renee Zellweger and Catherine Zeta-Jones. And my entire life was changed. All that jazz hit me to my core. And I also realized that I could sing. So I would be belting out that song, came out of this little body. My parents used to have a Christmas party every year. And we had a projector screen in our basement where we would watch movies. But if you're old like me, you remember that before you put a DVD in, there was a blue screen that would show before the DVD played. So I would turn on the projector but not put a movie in. So it was just this blue light casting down onto this coffee table. And I would get up onto the coffee table, all 50 inches of me, call everyone down from the party. This was probably like 75 people. And I would just start singing like, come on, babe. And like doing this leg thing. It was a riot. It was truly something that people thought was adorable. But this was something that I carried throughout my life, that I love to be the center of attention. And it's really cute when you're 9 years old. But then when you're 25 years old and you have double D's and you are a woman, it's not so cute anymore. And some people actually find it really obnoxious and they hate it. So that's what I faced as I got older. People thinking I was too much. People thinking I was a lot. How many times have you heard that about a woman? How many times have you said that about someone where you're like, I like her, but she's a lot. Or she's great, but she's too much. We're taught that being the center of attention or wanting attention is a bad thing. But in reality, like, isn't that what we all want? Don't we all just want attention, to be loved, to be understood, to be seen? I think if you figure out who you are as an adult and you become comfortable with that, then you stop dimming your light for people who get uncomfortable by how bright you shine. So after trying to fit in everyone else's boxes throughout my 20s, over the last couple of years, I decided, fuck it. Fuck them and fuck their comfort zones. Even the last venture that I was in. I know I said I wouldn't touch on it, and I'm still not going to give details right now, but I found myself trying to fit myself into a box that I really didn't want to be in anymore. So I decided to just take my life back into my own hands again. Something that I learned when I started my own company was you just got to start. If you believe in yourself and you're doing something that you really love and you're passionate about, you can figure out the rest later. When I started my company, I got fired from my job on my birthday, on January 31st. And this man had the audacity to look me in the eye and say, birthdays are for new beginnings. And with a prompt, fuck you, in my brain, I laughed and I looked at him and I said, thank you so much. Because that's what an ending is, isn't it? It's just a favor. It's a favor for you to take your life into your own hands. It's an opportunity for you to pivot and go after you want and you value. So that's what I did when I was let go. I said, I'm not going to look for another job. I'm going to make myself uncomfortable and I'm going to start my own company. It's what I've always wanted to do. Why not now? This is the perfect time. So I called up my friend who's a photographer. I had him take some photos of me. And then I got the Instagram account. Luckily, I had come up with a name a few months earlier. And by that Friday, I posted on Instagram, I have a company. Did I actually have a company? No. Did I have an LLC? No. Did I even have clients? Absolutely not. But I started. And most of the time, once you start, you really can't stop, especially when you post about it on social media. That's always a good little tip of mine. I'm always like, if you really want to do something, start telling everyone about it. So then you look really dumb if you don't follow through. And you kind of just force yourself to follow through if you have pride. But so that's how I started my company. And that's how I started Too Much. I realized I was unhappy. And I just started taking one step at a time. I saw the staircase, but little baby steps will eventually get you to where you're at a point where you're just rolling down a hill and it's taking off. I don't know the metaphor I'm looking for, but it just takes off. That's where I'm at right now. I'm sitting here recording this. I'm going to go home and I'm going to edit it and I'm just going to post it out to the world in like 5 days. So by the time you see this, hopefully this is just gone viral, blown up, and everyone knows about it. But who knows? Really jumping off a cliff right now. But the amount of feedback I've received over the last year and a half from Unhinged has just given me all the motivation that I've needed because I gained the confidence that I can do this. I've had some serious lemons over my life, and the lemonade I'm making is really fucking good. So if you can take all of these obstacles that you've had, I mean, even if you're not going to go start a podcast, even if you're not going to go start a company, take the things that you've been through in your life and make something good of it, whether that's your personality, making it better because of the lessons you've learned, or if it's a company, a nonprofit, a Instagram account of the things that you like, just bring joy to your life and to other people's lives. It's the most rewarding and fulfilling thing you can do. So whether this is going to be 5 people listening to this or 10 people listening to this, or if I delete this because it is so abysmal, but I don't think it is. I feel like I'm kind of on a roll. My goal here today and every week is to let you know you're not alone in feeling too much, and you're not alone in feeling misunderstood. I've been there. Sometimes I'm still there. But for now, I'm going to be going down the rabbit hole of all the things that I've been through in my life that have gotten me here. The friendship breakups, the professional breakups, the romantic breakups, the relationships in general, trauma, career changes, career advice, family dynamics, being a woman, just being yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, shameless plug, go follow the podcast. The handle is at, do I say that? God, I just sounded so old. The handle is Emma's Too Much on Instagram, TikTok, if that even still exists. It's Emma's Too Much everywhere. And on Spotify, please give me 5 stars because that's how this baby girl is going to fly. And yeah, that's it. I will see you next week.